Okay, this is the second video that I'm doing on the Gann Ribbon system. First of all, let's do the CFTC risk disclosure. Futures trading is not suitable for everyone, and past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. There is a risk of substantial loss in futures trading, or with any trading system or program, including my own. Careful evaluation of your personal financial situation must be done prior to deciding to trade in the futures market or any given trading system or methodology. Now you can pause the video and read the rest of this at your leisure. So I encourage you to read Bob's 10.7 thread, and he'll tell you how he came about discovering this indicator. And it's really gone through a lot of evolution in a very short time with all kinds of bells and whistles added. But I'm just going to basically show you the structure of the indicator. What I have here is a multi-time frame stochastic. The higher time periods of daily and of the weekly will be set at 2, 1, and 1. And the blue one is the current time period of 60 minutes, and it's already set at 7, 2, and 2, I believe. So anyway, we'll go into the indicator. And I don't know, it's not set there. Let's set that at 7. We'll just leave it that way. That's close enough. Now, time frame 2 would become the daily. And time frame 3 will become the weekly. And now you see Bob's indicator. If you're familiar with it and have read through some of the examples that he's given. So that's how simply it came about. What he was impressed by or amazed by was how these signals would lead the weekly, and the daily would lead the faster settings on the lower time frames. So it became a really nice indicator once it's set for the day or once it's set for the week at determining trend and trading into it or counter trade trending against it. So all kinds of bells and whistles have been added to it, and it's become a very mature indicator in a very quick period of time. It's morphed into a 10.7, 10.10 indicator. And the difference being one you trade trend with, and you just flip a switch and then you're trading counter trend with. And then there's the 10.9 or 10.9 indicator 2, which is the daily, for the daily and the weekly, if you want to trade those bigger time periods. And there's some other 10.8 and some other indicator settings he's using for trading carry and different ideas like that. So here is what the indicator looks like on the 4-hour, fully integrated into my system, the Gann Ribbons. Let's go down to the hourly because you can see a few more ribbons there. But you basically have a 10.10 indicator here. The difference between 10.7 and 10.10 being that the counter trend trade element is turned to true, basically. Up here you also have the Tomty Mark trend lines. What's very interesting about his trend lines was he developed them to be drawn right to left, and there's absolutely only one way that it can be drawn. There can be no arrows in how they're drawn, which really makes it nice because then they can be computerized and drawn automatically every time there's a new candle on the chart. So each one of these little, not all of them, but each one of these little circles represents a point where the trend line can connect. What happens is that there's a formula, and it's always perfect. It never changes, and as time moves on, it just readjusts each time based on that formula. And at some point, you will get a period where this triangle here will be broken, and Hopefully you also get a warning down here on your indicator indicating that to check the trend line for a possible trade. So that's basically what it looks like. I'm going to just show you the indicator settings on one of these time periods here. Let me see if I get the right one picked here. It's a lower one. I want the higher one. Okay, this is the 4-hour, this visualization on the 4-hour and the 1-hour. I've done one also for the 15 and 30, basically so you can set them differently. Basically, I'm using all the defaults. Show counter trends on, that's what makes it to 10.10 with counter trend alerts. Also, I'm not using only 7.2 for entry alerts. Pop-up alerts are on. You can also use email. It can be adjusted for email. I'm using all the exit alerts. The thing about the exit alerts is that you will only see them if you have a trade on a particular pair. And so they will activate at that point. You won't see them on pairs you're not trading on. So at first, when I started to understand this system, I thought it was going to be a lot more of the alerts than I thought, and really there's actually quite a few less than I thought. So basically, I'm using his defaults, even though he says the defaults are 20, 40, 60, and 80 here. The actual defaults he's using is 10, 30, 70, and 90. And that's where you're going to get the alerts for entry. I'm using 9, 2, and 3. You can use the 7, 2, and 2 if you want. That's up to you on these higher periods. I like to go a little longer and lower periods. I think I've given the rationale for that before in the thread. But anyway, I'm 9, 2, and 3, and it's really not all that much different. It just looks a little easier in my eyes, a little slower maybe. And then you have the see down here you have the 2, 1, and 1 on the high periods. Anything else in here or significance? And I have this TMA slope. I have it on as for an alert, exit alert, so it's set at 240. So that's the various defaults. They're pretty much the same on all the indicators I have, all these indicators I have on the chart. The daily looks a little different. It has its own indicator based on the monthly and weekly. And then the daily is using the 7x2 here to trade. So I put it on here as convenience. There's no ribbons with it. They're not really necessary, I don't think. Trade daily. It's just a convenience to have it on here. You might want to, if you trade a daily, set up a separate instance of your MetaTrader account just to do the daily or something like that. So now we're going to take a look at Bob's description of his stochastics. I've sort of rewritten them a little bit just to make them a little more easy to understand, hopefully. First of all, we're going to start with the weekly stochastic, which is the 2-to-1. It's the red line. It is set to the fastest settings allowed by MT4. W21 is red of the present weekly candle, letting you know if it is going up or down. Once it is set, it will stay on top or at the bottom unless a big reversal happens. At the beginning of the week, it'll probably take a little while for that to happen, and that's what it says here in the next sentence. Early in the week, if direction is not set yet, it will change up and down. This is not repainting, this is a lack of market direction. And then trading into the weekly candle is part of a top-down trading approach. 10.7 is unique in that the higher time frames go first, and then you enter with a slower Indy on the lower time frames. So Bob uses a top-down approach, and actually the GannRibbon systems is a bottom-up approach, so sort of a yin-yang here, meeting in the middle. So now we'll look at the next stochastic. The next stochastic is the daily 2.1, which means you got the 2 and 1 settings. It's a yellow or gold line. It is set to the fastest settings allowed by MT4. The D21 is red. It is a read of the present daily candle, letting you know if it is going up or down. Once it is set, it will stay on top or bottom unless a reversal happens. The D2, or the daily 2.1, is very sensitive, so when price stalls and there is no candle direction, it will constantly change positions up and down. Hopefully the yen session will set the direction for the day, and it will stick on top or bottom for the rest of the day. Trading into the weekly candle is part of a top-down trading approach. However, not every day is an up day or down day during a week. Price may go up 3 days and down 2 days, or 4 days even. On days price is not going in the direction of the weekly candle, we use the daily 2.1 to tell us that so we don't trend trade that day. So the daily 2.1 is a filter, so you're not fighting dips and rallies and an uptrend and a downtrend. The daily 2.1 is not used on the daily time frame, and higher it is for the 4-hour charts and lower. 10.7 is unique in that the higher time frames go first, and then you enter with a slower entity on the lower time frame. So next we'll discuss the lowest time frame. This is the one we're going to be using for the lower time periods of 240, 60, 15, 30, and even 5. It's called the any time frame stochastic set. The same for okay, so since I do not use always the same stochastic settings, I call this the any time frame stochastic, and it's set the same for the 60 and 240 periods on the Gann final system. Also, I'm using the same settings on the 15 and 30 minute. Not the same settings, but the same systems that's on the 15 and the 30. So they are like 18 and 2, and it's the higher time frames like 9 and 2, something like that. So you can see the settings, and they've changed some as the system's evolved. So I use the word Stoch X here instead of Stoch 7 is your entrance signal, or better yet, your signal to set up or not set up a trade. It works on any time frame, so it will change from time frame to time frame. The daily 2.1 and the weekly 2.1 do not change from time frame to time frame, but remain the same on all the time frames. It gives you 2 signals for buys. When it's below the 10 line and moves up past the 10 upward, that is considered a buy alert. You go look at the chart and decide whether or not you want to trade. We'll also give you a second warning at the 30 line. Stoch X gives 2 signals for sell trades. When it comes down from the top and crosses the 90, it will give a sell trade alert. You will then check your charts and see if you wish to make this trade. It will also give a second warning signal at the 70 line. The indicator was designed to get you into a good spot to trade, or at least look at a trade. And Bob's thoughts were I found it quite reliable if you follow other signals with it. Here are 4 steps to a 10.7 trend trade sequence, buys. And this would also be the same for a counter trend trade that would be a buy. You get a buy trade warning at the 10 and 30. You confirm momentum with better volume, CSS, and power chart. You confirm support and resistance with the ribbons, pivots, and round numbers. You will need to take this into consideration for profit levels. You set up a buy stop or enter manually above the demarked trend line triangle. You set up your stop loss below the demarked trend line triangle. And you'll either enter automatically or you'll enter manually depending on the time period you're trading. But I try to get it down to 4 simple steps. And of course, you don't want to forget the ribbons and what your knowledge of the ribbons is, and the law of the ribbons, and volume, whether there's going to be momentum in the market, what time of day is it, and that kind of thing. but I try to make these as simple as we can, and we implemented this into the system. 4 steps to a 10.7 trend trade sequence: sells, or this also could be counter trend. You get a sell trade warning at the 90 and 70. You confirm momentum with better volume, CSS, and power chart. You confirm support and rhythm with the support and resistance with the ribbons and pivots and round numbers. You will need to take this into consideration for profit levels. You set up your sell stop or enter manually below the demarc trend line triangle. You set up your stop loss above the demarc trend line triangle. And again, that's as simple as I can make it. And of course, ribbons in themselves are studying themselves, and the more you have knowledge of the ribbons and the Barry Taylor volume indicator, the better your trading will be, I think. Now the 10.9 daily buy signal is simple. The weekly 2.1 on top. Stoke 7 comes up from the bottom, giving the warning at the 10 and 30 line, and you enter and hold. 10.9 daily sell signal. Weekly 2.1 at the bottom. Stoke 7 comes down from the top, warning at the 90 and 70 line, enter and hold. As simple as that. These are longer trend trades. There is no counter trend trade. The indicator itself. The Indy will only issue exit warnings at these levels if you have an open trade. No open trade on a currency pair, no exit warnings given. Exits, buys for both 10.7 and 10.9. These are for buy trades. Move stop loss up when the line crosses 50. Move stop loss up when the line crosses 70. Move stop loss up or close when the line crosses 90. Exit when the blue line goes to the opposite side. Definitely close all buy trades when Indy gives TMA close signal or the weekly 2.1 red line moves back to the bottom. So the advantage we also have is having the ribbons there as guidelines for profit levels, the round numbers there for guidelines for profit levels, and you should have a lot of guidance right there that you're making the best decision to end the trade. I think that's the nice thing about the Gann Ribbon system. Entries in any system are always going to be difficult, but the Gann Ribbon system makes exits probably easier than any trade system I've ever seen, simply because you know where all the resistance is, where all the support is, and you can actually let it price run up against that resistance and let it test it, and then take your profit. So exits sells for both 10.7 and 10.9. Move stop loss down when line crosses 50. Move stop loss down when line crosses 30. Move stop loss down or close when line crosses 90. Exit when the blue line goes to the opposite side. Definitely close all buy trades when Indy gives TMA close signal or W21 red line moves back up to the bottom. And again, you have a tremendous amount of visual trading support to look at in the Gann Ribbon system and in Barry Taylor's indicator, volume indicator. So I think exits won't be difficult. Entries is where you could get some fake outs, and have to be a little bit more careful especially in the lower time periods of 15 and 30, that you confirm entries there with both volume and with ribbons and ordered pairs and some of the things we've already discussed. So just looking at the 15-minute here, you can see here we had a signal down, which would have been a counter trend signal, and you can see the arrow down here on the Tom DeMarc trend lines. And you can see how they broke down and through the trend line. I think what's nice about Tom DeMarc's, it will help us in these areas of consolidation to make a proper entry. And even here we didn't have much volume, so there was still, it wasn't a great trade, but there was still some progress down to hit in about where the gray had crossed and was turning up, and there was some support there. On the 30-minute, you can actually see it a little better, how it broke through and down, and you can see the indicator presently where it's at. It's very interesting how these Tom DeMark trend lines set up. They're very beautiful the way they set up and work. Guy's a genius. I have one of his books and read him. He's very unique. Really almost scientific in the way he looks at trading. So again, we'll invite you to hopwoodforex.com, and you can find me in the manual section under Gann Ribbon system, and the system is in post 1, and again Ribbon system videos will be in post 2. And this concludes the second video with thoughts on how Bob's 10.79 10.7, 10.7, 10.10, 10.9 indicators have been implemented into the Gann Ribbon